Oh, I have an interesting video for you today, my friends. This is Tony. Hope you're all doing well. We got a lot of stuff to get into. In this video, we are definitely in a different time. I'm guessing you've kind of noticed that. There was also a clip that came out yesterday that I got to show you guys in a little bit that has to do with some of the stuff going on currently. You're not going to believe this video. I'll show it in a little bit here. But the fact is, we're living in definitely a different time. There's no question about it. I've shown you guys this chart before of these solar eclipses happening on the exact same day this year as they did during the book of Esther. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how Esther, Daniel, Cyrus, and all that stuff is playing out today and showing what's going to happen next. But I wanted to show you how they are showing their faces right now, my friends. Right here, there was a clip that came out with her speaking at one of her, of course, rallies. Someone in the crowd said, okay, so she was in the middle of speaking about some topic. And someone in the crowd said, Jesus is Lord, really loud. And she stopped what she was doing and looked right at him and said, you're at the wrong rally. And everyone started laughing. Meaning like they clearly are not into that whole Jesus thing, right? So she basically was, in a sense, mocking him, and they all laughed when she said this. And of course, some say, well, did he really say that? Yeah, actually he did, because there's another clip of someone who was there, who was standing near the guy, and she recorded exactly what was said. It's this lady right here. She went to the, convention or whatever you want to call it, and she recorded him saying it. She was standing right next, or not next to him, but sort of in the realm of where he was. And it was very obvious what he said. So she directly was saying, you're at the wrong convention for saying that. And you believe that stuff, you're in the wrong place, my friend. You need to go to the other. And she actually went and said, you need to go to the other guy's convention or rally. That's what she said. You're in the wrong one, bro. And everyone laughed because they all were in agreement with her. Well, not everyone, but probably most everyone was laughing. So that kind of shows you where we're at. They're just telling you exactly who they are at this point. Like I said, we're going to get into a ton of stuff in this video. So many things happening around us right now. Believe it or not, they just spent $500 billion in like a few days' time. You have to understand how much money that is. Our national debt, what is it? It's like 36 trillion or something now. They spent $500 billion in a few days. $500 billion. That's how ridiculous things are getting right now. And of course, now there's a lot of people coming out, even Dr. Phil, of all people. I've been talking about this. Clearly, things are not going the right direction. A lot of people are finding it very difficult to afford things. Everyone's talking about this all of a sudden. Let me just play a little bit of this.
One word that has, for many, turned their American dream into a nightmare. In our audience are over 250 people sharing how they or someone they love is desperate for financial relief. Living in a car is hard.
But it can happen to anyone.
Yeah, and you're seeing a lot of people not being able to afford homes now, particularly in some of these very expensive cities. It's getting absolutely ridiculous. And like I said, we're going to get into some really interesting stuff in this video. I just wanted to show this first. Check this out. They're saying that the income a family needs to live comfortably, 4 people in the family, they're saying $200,000, $250,000, depending on the state. The lowest state, I think, was $178,000. Mississippi. Now, compare this. This is a 4-person family. To live comfortably, they're saying you need this much money. Now, this is what families make. This is what they actually make, a family, not one person, a family. Median household income last year, you have lots of different numbers here, 80,000. This is almost 90 here. That's about 80, 70, 65, 70. And I think the lowest one I saw, is this 55? I think that might be 55 right there. There's a 46 right here. This is the lowest. I think this is Mississippi with almost, it's about 46,000. The highest is almost 100. It's about 90. But again, nothing remotely near what you need to have to live comfortably, according to what they're saying. You're down like 140,000 to live comfortably, according to them, right? So everyone is having difficulty right now being able to afford. Not everybody. A lot of people are having difficulty affording things. I mean, if you have already a home and you bought it at the right time, that's awesome. That's what happened to me. You know, I still have a car that's working fine, even though it's 10 years old. I don't want to buy a new one. You know what I mean? But you're seeing all these people around us showing who they really are, their true colors, just asking about, you know, who are they supporting, her or him? They absolutely freak out sometimes. Like in the case of this person right here, I would play the clip, but literally they swear nonstop. So I'm not going to play it. Okay. I'm just not going to play it, man. It's like, it's funny though. It's a really funny video. It reminded me of that Blockbuster video because he misgendered her, I think. It reminded me of that Blockbuster video with the 6'3" guy. It's ma'am. And then the little Blockbuster guy's like 5'6", like, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, sir. He's like freaking out. He's like not thinking about what he's saying because he's so scared. It's ma'am. It's like hilarious, you know. The world we live in today doesn't make a lot of sense. You remember back in 2020 when they were telling you to wear, of course, masks. And just looking at some of these old videos from 4 years ago, not being able to even shop in a store because you didn't have one on. Even if you have a medical, of course, condition, doesn't matter. Just go outside. The guy's like, just go outside and I'll buy the stuff for you. I guess this guy's just trying to be nice because I've seen other videos where they literally chase you down and kick you out back then. But that's where we're living, right? This is the world we're living in, where the devil is showing his true, of course, colors these days. And I wanted to get into some of these things that I was talking about. The woman and the dragon. I talked about this over my main channel. We're seeing a really interesting things aligning right now. And by the way, you've ever heard that phrase, the stars align for you? Let me show you something rather interesting that I discovered. And actually, this is something I should have seen a long time ago. I don't know why I didn't notice this. You remember the Revelation 12, of course, sign? It happened at the King of Kings' birth. And guess what aligned on that day? The wandering stars all aligned on that day. You have the moon. You have the sun. You have Mercury. You have, I think it's Venus and Jupiter all aligning on that day. As they say, the phrase, the stars aligned, right? Well, they did. And guess what day that was, by the way? If you use Stellarium, you can go look this up and see it for yourself. September in 3 BC. And guess what day? We're talking 11. Yes, that's the day when he was born. And all these strange things seem to happen on that day. They even have for calling in if you have an emergency, that number, right? Kind of weird. I don't think there's something behind that, do you? Couldn't be anything occultic or anything, right? So you see that going on. And what's interesting in this video, I'm going to show you, we're going to talk about the Vatican a little bit, but what I'm going to show you is that we're seeing playing out right now. We first saw Cyrus and Daniel. Now we're going to be seeing the book of Esther playing out. And then we're going to see Daniel, a figure coming in. So we're seeing what's happening right now is we're seeing a mirror of something that happened in the past. So you can see here, the celestial season is the exact same as it was during the time of Esther. And she was in a time when they were moving from the red dragon to the white dragon. The 500-year Ona, where you have these 500-year blocks of time. And right now we are on the exact same season they had back then. You can see these solar eclipses are the exact same. March 25th. And this one's slightly off. You have April 9th, April 8th. You have September 18th, October 2nd, October 2nd. And this one right here, the one that's off, you can actually explain that with the fact that back then they didn't look at the day the same way we do today. Back then, when sun would go down in the middle of the day, or not the middle of the day, but when the sun would go down, what would that be, like 6 p.m. or whatever? That would be the end of the day, not 12 p.m. So that would explain that discrepancy potentially right there. But the fact is, we're in the same exact time frame. We're at the end of an Ona. And we're going from the red dragon also to the white dragon, just like they did in the time of the book of Esther. So she was actually instrumental in saving Israel. Okay, but what set that up before that? So Cyrus conquered Babylon. And we're in currently a Babylonian type of system. So who is the Cyrus figure today? Interestingly, we see it with our former prez. Matter of fact, they even made a coin with his face and Cyrus on it. So he is sort of a Cyrus type, figure. But Cyrus was also assisted by a certain man named Daniel, a prophet. And there are now people predicting there is going to be a Daniel type person that is going to come very soon here. He's supposed to be revealed this year, but he won't be really well known until next year. We even have Troy Black predicting this. I don't think he really understands it fully, but it's not. He thinks it's 45 also, but he's wrong. He says it's his opinion. He doesn't know who it is. So he's not wrong technically, but he's just guessing. He says, that's my opinion. I think what it is it's a Daniel type figure to assist 45 is what it will really be. And what that means is a leader in the church who will bring the church the right direction, because clearly it's not going the right direction right now. And this person will be greater than anyone before him, sort of like one of these Daniel type figures. He'll be a very big figure. Everyone will see who he is. He will be doing things that are like he'll be able, I don't know exactly what he'll all do, but it'll probably be, he'll have a huge voice in the church, in the culture, and he'll have the right ideas that will just resonate with people. Maybe he'll even have some miraculous things he does. I don't know how it will all work out, but he will help guide us the right direction, kind of like Daniel did in his time. And so that's something that's supposed to happen. Further prophetic implications. All of this opens the door for the Esther narrative to be repeated, because Cyrus was the one that conquered Babylon Empire in 539 BC, which put many within the Persian Empire. This is all very mystically and esoterically anti-Babylonian, because Persia conquered Babylon. We also had the secret Esther month of Adar 2 this year as well. And 45 typologically being represented, of course, as Cyrus, is prophetic imagery showing that he will play a leading role in removing, of course, the system. And he will be also enlightened by a Daniel type advisor or person. And this is who Troy is predicting here, is a Daniel type person. And there's others also predicting this as well. There's actually about 4 or 5 people predicting. In the case of Mark, Taylor, he calls it an American Pharaoh. There's a lot of people. They're all saying there's going to be some person. And I think they're all talking about the same person. And it'll be very soon here, if not, or it'll be very soon. We'll see this person. But it won't be, most people won't even notice him. He won't really be noticed until next year. But if you're really looking for him, you'll see him sometime this year, if you really look for him. So he's not going to be someone well-known right off the bat. But next year, it will be like when he really grows in being seen. It's like that will be sort of when he's being seen, is next year. At any rate, so I wanted to get into this. This is really interesting. So why are there 2 chapters removed from Scripture and put in the Apocrypha, and they're both from these 2 stories, Esther and Daniel, and they're both about dragons? You have the chapter at the end of the book of Esther, Mordecai's dream, about 2 dragons vying for, of course, power in the world, which is what I'm referring to by the red and white dragon, a good and evil dragon. There were cries, noise, thunder, earthquakes, disorder over the whole earth. 2 great dragons came forward, each ready for fray, set up a roar. Sound of them every nation made. So it's referring to what's going on in the world. Interestingly, also, there was a story in Daniel that was removed as well, called Bel and the Dragon. There's a reason why these were removed. You see what I'm getting at? This is referring to our time frame. Bel is referring to Baal. The dragon's referring to the devil. Baal, of course, is a Gilgamesh type character who is counter to the King of Kings. He's the physical manifestation of course, the devil on earth. So that's what's represented here, the dragon being the devil. Okay? I'm referring to these two chapters, both removed from two books in Scripture, and they all tie into what I've been talking about. I find that to be rather interesting, and it ties into today. Cyrus the Great worked with Daniel. Let me look that up real quick. Daniel. Yeah, here we go. Daniel 10. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar. How do you say that? Belteshazzar? Yeah. Its message was true, and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision. So you can see he worked with Cyrus back then. And getting over to what I think is going to happen, partially, let me talk about this. So first, we're in the time of the Feast of the Tabernacles, currently, the most joyful feast. And this is on God's calendar. What's interesting about this is there's a requirement for this feast to go forward and for God to dwell with the Israelites. Let me show you this. But this feast had another requirement before they could celebrate it. They're required to bring in their final fall or latter harvest. And what's really interesting is it did happen this time around. So we're in the time of the Feast of Tabernacles, and the harvest was brought in. How was the harvest brought in this year? Let me show you. What's really prophetic about the Feast of Tabernacles this year is that it was well known that it required a latter harvest. This year, before the Feast of Tabernacles, it was after the blood red super harvest moon. You remember the 4 super moons? July, August, September, October. September's supermoon is called a harvest moon. And usually the Feast of Tabernacles happens before this. But this time, this time around, we actually have the harvest moon before the Feast of Tabernacles, which is what's required for God, of course, to dwell with us. So that requirement has been made or met this year. Interestingly, also, the King of Kings said something on the Feast of Tabernacles in this verse. On the last day, that great day of the feast, he stood and cried out, "If anyone thirst, let him come to me and drink, he who believes in me. As the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water." Now, I mentioned this over my other channel, and a lot of people are commenting because I mentioned something really interesting. Okay, check this out. The scripture he's quoting, no one knows where it came from. We don't know of a scripture that says, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. There's even websites trying to solve that. The missing verse, rivers of living water. What was he quoting? Where is this scripture he was reading in the OT that says this, or in the Apocrypha? They don't even know where it is. There is no OT or Apocrypha we know of that says this. There is, though, a verse. There's 2 verses in Jeremiah that sound very similar to this. They say something about God being the source of living water, but it doesn't say out of his heart, meaning the person. A person who takes him in, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water. There's no verse like that, but there is one very similar in Jeremiah. There's actually 2 of them that say something about living water. And they even say something, one of them says something about a river of living water, but it doesn't say out of the heart, right? It doesn't say like if you put them in your heart, you'll have this. It doesn't say that. So no one knows where the scriptures comes from. And what's interesting about that, I didn't mention over on the other video, is that in 2 Ezra 14, verse 44 to 45, it talks about there will be 70 books that are put aside and hidden that only the wise may read. Let me show you this. Here we go. Okay. I think this version says it the way I want it to say it. Yeah, it does. Because some of these translations are hard to read. And they translate differently depending on which one you're looking at. But so during those days, so basically this man was required to write down all of the scriptures verbatim, like God was just dictating them to him. So during the 40 days, 94 books were written. And then when the 40 days were ended, the Most High spoke to me, saying, make public the 24 books that you wrote first, and let the worthy and unworthy read them, righteous, unrighteous, whatever you want to call it. But keep the 70 that were written last in order to give them to the wise. Now, let me explain something. How many books are in the OT? A lot of people are going to say 49, but that's actually not what's true. That might have been true today, but that's not true back then. How many books does the Hebrew Tanakh have in it? How many books? 24. Look at that. The Hebrew Tanakh, which is our 39 books, is 24 in their version. So our 39 books equal to 24. Make public the 24 books. And then the 70, hide them or give them to the wise. So there's 70 more books that are in the OT we don't even know about. Well, some of them we probably know about. You got lots of other books. You got this one right here is one of them, Second Ezra's. I mean, you got like, Wisdom of Solomon. You got like, I mean, you can, Tobit, whatever. You got all these different books. But I don't know of 70 other ones. Perhaps what he was quoting from was one of these 70 that we don't know of that's been hidden. And could it be hidden in the Vatican library? Could they know about these? Well, what's interesting is there are people predicting that there's going to be something discovered soon. All roads lead to Rome. Let me show you this. The Pope and the Vatican, that's right, the Pope and the Vatican are not furthering my kingdom, but aiding the kingdom, of darkness. Many are saying this is the last Pope, but it's not for the reasons they think. This will be the last Pope for what I'm about to do. I'm expose, of course. Let me read over here. There's a shaking and quaking coming to the Pope and the Vatican, for I will split it wide open for the entire world to see the inner workings of this ancient beast. They will all come crumbling down. I'll pull back the veil. So I think that they know something. We've seen what Pope Francis has done of recent. We have a number of things he's done. I talked about that in the past. He went to Singapore and said that all roads lead to God or something ridiculous like that. Something completely wrong. And what's interesting is if you look at this Malaki prophecy, I've referred to it before, we are on the last Pope. And these are all very accurate. If you follow my channel, you know all about this. Interestingly, it says he's named Peter the Roman. We're on Pope Francis. He is the 112th Pope. This was a 1,000-year-old prediction, and we're on the last one in the list right now. And these are all very accurate. Pope Benedict, Glory of the Olive, that was his motto in the prophecy. He was of the Olivetan order. Pope John Paul II, of the eclipse of the sun, that was the motto. He was born on a solar eclipse. His funeral was on a solar eclipse of the half moon. This guy was ordained on a half moon. Flower of flowers, this guy had a flower motto on his robe. I mean, so these are all very accurate, okay? This guy, Peter the Roman, Pope Francis, he would always refer to himself, insist that he's the Bishop of Rome. He didn't like being called the pontiff over the whole church. He liked being called Bishop of Rome. See that? So we are on indeed the last guy. And again, it says here, it's because of darkness that it will be made known, and that's why he's the last one. Well, we've seen him say things that are absolutely ridiculous of recent. Also, I had a dream about 2 years ago, and what's really bizarre about my dream is I had it about 8 months before this trailer for the Pope's Exorcist came out. And it's very similar to the story of the Pope's Exorcist, this movie with Russell Crowe in it. In my dream, I was in a basement and there's actually other people with me, and they had found a secret room behind something on the wall. Kind of similar to this. In this case, he just used a sledgehammer and found it. Mine was a little bit different. Like they just found some weird woodworking on the wall and then removed it and were able to get into this room. And in my dream, it looked very much like this. It looked very much like this sort of scene here. This is after he broke the wall down. They went in, right? And in my dream, it was very similar. We went through this wall and we were in a room like this, and there was like skeletons, and it was like medieval like this. And I saw a judge that was a skeleton with his gavel, and he was going like this. He was actually moving. And that's when I was given more sort of information in the dream, where I saw two people, and one was exalted and one was condemned. And I was given all these clues in the dream, and it was like 5 of them. And ultimately what it ended up being was that I found out it had to do with Joan of Arc, and it had to do with Youre from 1440 AD. And what's really weird about this movie is it's also about a very similar time frame. This demon named Asmodeus in the movie is from the time of the Spanish Inquisition, which was 1478 to 1834. My dream was about demons from 1440. So I had this dream before this movie came out, before the trailer came out. And it actually follows very similar to this movie, which is really strange. But of course, this movie is a fictionalized version of a true story, partially true story, it says. But actually, I think it is a fictionalized version of a true story. Okay? I think the true story is this Asmodeus is actually the devil. And it was slightly before the Spanish Inquisition. It was around 1440, not 1478. Because the actual trial that I saw in my dream was referring to Joan of Arc and Youre. And that trial is what led into the Spanish Inquisition. And Joan of Arc, according to my dream, the devil behind Youre was the same one behind Joan of Arc. She heard voices. Youre was her friend. Youre was also the first one of these. And by the way, if you look back, what's really bizarre about it, this was right after the Middle Ages. You have to go back almost 1,000 years to find one before him. 1,000 years. Which means there were basically none during the Middle Ages. 0 of these type of people. And this, by the way, this guy's like the worst form of one you'd ever seen. If you go read his story, it's just unbelievable. He's the worst one of these ever, probably. He's like the worst one of these ever. Okay? I don't even want to mention what he was doing. It's just really not good. Okay? It's really bad. But what was interesting is the reason why I figured this out, because after I had the dream, I was like trying to figure out what's going on here with this dream. I'm trying to figure it out. And then God said to me, you remember how I told you about Pope Sixtus III? Yeah. You remember what year was he? 440. Add 1,000 years to that. I'm like, okay, I'll add 1,000. Oh, 1440. Go look up court cases in 1440. So I go look up court cases in 1440, and that's when I found out about this guy. And that's where I was able to match what I saw in the dream. The woman exalted, the man condemned. He was condemned in his trial. She was also technically condemned, but then exalted later. So she at first was condemned, but then exalted. So she was exalted, he was condemned. And they were friends. So what I was basically told was that the devil got out of the bottomless pit in around 1440, and this was his first act through Youre on the earth, which would be basically to do this right here. That's what he did. That was his first act after getting out of the pit. And according to my dream. And I was looking into more stuff about this. And of course, the fall of Rome was around the time of 440 AD. Pope Sixtus III. Almost no one knows who this guy is. The number Sixtus in Latin is the number 6 to the third. 6, 6, and another 6. Pope 6, 6, and another 6. Right? And interestingly, in Daniel 7, it's 8, it says, a little horn is given power from 3 other horns, and he speaks arrogantly. Now, these 3 horns, I believe, were these 3 Germanic tribes that conquered Rome from I think it was like 412 to 478. And they all gave power to the Pope. So he's the little horn at that point in time. And so this is why I think how this all plays out. Of course, like I mentioned, Francis recently said all religions are a path to God. And I'm not quite sure what day he said it on, but it might have been September, of course, 11, which of course is the birth of the King of Kings 2,000 years ago. That's his birthday. Would he have said this on his birthday? This error? That's an interesting question. Could the devil also be in, of course, the Vatican now? I do believe so. And even the chief exorcist, which this movie's based on, said the devil's in the Vatican. The man that is the actual exorcist that this movie's based on said that. And he's the chief exorcist. So I think that's rather curious. At any rate, so you get kind of the idea regarding all that. We had, of course, the Pope meet with Roth, of course, Child back in 2020 for business, green energy business, or whatever, however they call it, save the planet business. So you get kind of the idea of all this stuff. And my point is, we're seeing these stories of Esther and Daniel all playing out right now. And I like getting back over to that. So King Cyrus with Daniel, right? And I just showed you a quote from Daniel, but I think that's the time we're in right now. We're in the time related to Esther. We're going from the red dragon to the white dragon. And Cyrus had someone assisting him, Daniel. Now, of course, interestingly, there was a coin made of 45 with Cyrus, right? So he's considered a Cyrus type figure. And typologically being represented as Cyrus is prophetic imagery showing that he will play a leading role in taking out the Babylon system, because Cyrus conquered Babylon back in 539 BC. And he will be, and the Cyrus figure, which is of course 45, will be enlightened by a Daniel type figure, which we don't know who that is yet. And what's interesting is, like I mentioned before, let me see if I can get on the screen. Where is it at? 1 second. Where is it? Yeah, here we are. We have here Troy Black predicting there will be some sort of Daniel figure showing up on the scene this year and will be known in 2025. So this person's going to assist 45 in steering our culture the right direction, the church the right direction. He'll be a Daniel type figure. And from what I understand, according to a number of different prophets, he will be greater than almost anyone before him, or something to that matter. He'll be very great. He'll be a very huge prophet, or whatever you want to call it. So he'll have the right words to say to help influence the culture the right direction. He will have whatever means of getting things going the right direction. And it could even be some miraculous stuff. I don't know. But I'm guessing there probably will be. At any rate, that's kind of my video. I'm kind of wondering what some of you guys think. Let me know in the comment section below, and thanks for watching.